Just such an incredible place. Thousands, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, cars, trucks, you name it. Out here in Texas for projects and parts. So this story starts actually in Kansas at another junkyard. This was over in Hutchinson. It was actually the boneyard for a used car lot in town. It was just their old trade-ins and the stuff that wasn't good enough to put on the lot. They had crushed about 1,000 cars back in 2018, and there were just a few left. I spotted the '69 Cadillac Coupe de Ville. I knew it was rough, there's no sugarcoating that, but I thought it might be something, just throw a motor in, kind of make into an old beater. When we got this car up in the air, and I actually was able to look underneath it, it had just sat too long. The frame was bad, the floors were bad, and realistically at that point, it's gonna be a parts car. It's just not something that a guy's gonna be able to put any money in and realistically have something when you're done. At this point, it's just strictly parts car status. Still aren't great on that forklift.
Yeah, they don't work at all anymore.
Yeah, that's how I remember it. He used to just hit the cars to stop it.
Yeah.
Till he got down to the ones he cared about. So I got the car home, got it on rollers, popped the brakes loose, and sat on it for a while. I really like this car. It's just neat to look at. So I did keep it around for a little bit just to look at it. Even though this is not a buildable car, there's still a lot of good parts here. And being over half a century old, I didn't want to just scrap it. To me, that's irresponsible. So I got a hold of Trenton down in Texas and loaded this thing up to give it new life as a parts car at his yard. There it goes. It'll be placed out in the rows. Cadillac section is all the way in the back. So I'm going to look around out here, and probably toward the end of the day we'll make it over to the back there at the Cadillac section. There's several thousand cars here. I mean, they stretch as far as the eye can see. And the purpose of this video is not going to be to exhaustively document every car that's here. That would take a very long time, and the inventory does change pretty regularly. There were a couple other people here on YouTube who have shown a lot of what's here, and those are actually really pretty good videos. I did look over some of them to get a good idea what's here, but they've all been shot over a year ago, and there have been several new additions since then. Obviously, I brought the Cadillac here, something that at this point I can't use, but there are other things that I am looking for, and so I'm gonna see if I pick out a few things to take back home. I do have a little bit of store credit for bringing the Cadillac, and just gonna take a look around. It's not exactly organized. They have an empty hole, and that's where they put a car down, so you just kind of have to look at all of them. Although there are some sections of Studebakers, Hudsons, Fords, Cadillacs, GM stuff. He does have a little patch of 1930s and early 40s cars. So, person, just take a look around here. I am going to say Trenton's very busy. He's got a couple guys helping him. But if you do have interest in stuff, parts, anything like that, please be respectful of his time. He's buried in tasks, and there's always something to do out here. So if you are interested, be serious, don't be a tire kicker. And the other thing I will say, a lot of these cars, if it's here and it's complete, they can be bought whole, but you're not going to want to drag your feet, because when they sit here for very long, he does get a lot of calls for parts, and anything that you want, kind of got to hurry if you want it complete. So I'm back in the back section here, and in this row there's supposed to be 56 Lincoln. I'm looking for a radio for my car, and I think I spot one. There are actually two of these cars out here, both 56 four-door post. The 56 and 57 are pretty different on the outside, but the dash pretty much unchanged between the 2 years. So here you can see the quarter panels, the rear bumper, the tail lights, all quite a bit different in 56. This car actually does have factory air, which you see quite a bit down here in Texas. So we're gonna get the tools, get inside, and get the radio out. Shouldn't be too bad of a job, and then we'll keep taking a look here around the yard. Spotted a bit of an oddball in the row here. This is English Taxi. Anybody's guess how a car like this made it from Britain here to Texas, but here it is. I don't know that I've ever actually gotten to look at one of these up close. Pretty curious what it's like inside. See, it's got the division window there. Right-hand drive, of course. Interior's pretty cooked, but all the hard parts are there, and it's really a pretty unmolested car. Might make a decent project. Interesting boot lid, kind of almost like a tailgate. It's a neat car, pretty complete, really not a rust bucket. Person found a grill for this thing, probably be a viable car. Amazingly, the trunk floor is not rusted out. Actually, really surprisingly solid. You can see it has a 5-inch bolt circle. Somebody's put Chevy rally wheels on it. Don't know what that is in millimeters. 62 Biscayne, 63 Plymouth Wagon, Pinto, 55 Packard, 63 Galaxy, among many others out in the rows. Here's the Studebaker row. These all pretty much came from one collection, and there's a whole bunch if anybody's looking for Studebaker parts. There's a mid-70s GM H-body hatchback, Volvo wagon, another H-body hatchback. Then peeking out there is a Volkswagen New Beetle in isotope green. Kind of a rare color, they only made a couple model years. Crazy to think that a early 2000s retro look car like that is an upcoming collectible, but here we are. 57 Ford, There's a 69, 70 C-body Mopar. Several of them out here, if you're into them like I am. 50s Buicks. They're getting into some older stuff. If you like 40s, 50s, 60s cars and you're needing pieces, there's probably a pretty good chance stuff out here. Studebaker Wagonaire with the sliding roof. And into another row of Studebakers. If you need any parts for a Studebaker, there's probably a good chance it's here. At least if it's a 50s or 60s car. Any of these orphan makes, the trade in used parts is pretty important because there's not a huge amount reproduced. There's a 56 Bel Air 4-door hardtop, 56 Dodge, and a 55 Dodge. See the difference, fins and no fins. 65 or 6 Buick Electra, 2-door hardtop. Always liked those. 69 4-door hardtop. 68 Fury. 56 is kind of a neat car. Looks really solid still. 62 Impala SS. Rusty old bucket. It's given up some, but there's still quite a bit here. No, these are pretty popular cars now. 4950 Hudson. Mercury with the fog lights, kind of cool. 50 Dodge. Another 50 Dodge. 3-window coupe. Those are such neat cars. '51-2 Buick. 3-hole. 56 Olds, 4-door hardtop. 58 Chevy, 2-door post. And this one's kind of a rare one. 1969 Chrysler 300, 4-door hardtop. Pretty cool car, hideaway headlights. 69 to 73 fuselage body Mopars, some of my favorites. 57 Dodge. And here I've spotted an example of probably my favorite of all Studebakers. This is a 1958 2-door hardtop. Unfortunately, fire damaged. So, realistically, a parts car at this point. I don't know what it is about these cars. They just have a really neat, quintessential late 50s look to them. Kind of like that 57 Lincoln, or maybe a 57-8 Chrysler. To me, this Studebaker is just so well proportioned, and it has such a unified approach to all the individual styling details that really pull together into such a neat package. Couple 55 Pontiacs. One's a 2-door hardtop. Pair of 53, 54 Kaisers. Then over here, have a vehicle I don't think I've ever showed on the channel before. 47-8 Packard, 2-door fastback. And there's actually a pair of them. Pretty neat body style. There's a 4-door Packard. And then this one, 4678 Hudson Coupe. And again, there's not one, but a pair of them also. Really neat look to these. Almost like a 46 Cadillac in a lot of ways. '40s Ford. 63 Cadillac. There's another Coupe de Ville, kind of like the one I brought. Believe this one's a 70. This ambulance, another 63. Just such a cool car. Got the high top. Not certain what brand that is. Don't really know the different bodybuilders very well for coach built hearses and ambulances. So if you know what that one is, drop it in the comments. There's another Cadillac hearse. These old funeral cars, I just kind of think they're neat. 53 Cadillac. Maybe a 52. Here we are down in the rows. Made it to the end. Lots of Buicks out here as well. Those are two brands that I think kind of have a special place in Trenton's heart. Buick hardtop had a rough life. 56 Cadillac. And there it is. There's my old 69 put down for first pieces to come off whenever someone makes a call and asks for them. If you need a Cadillac part, probably a good chance it's out here. Now, there's a couple of these 62 Dodge Lancers, and if anybody's watched the channel long, you saw the little shorty station wagon I also picked up from the Mopar Horde down here in Texas. Even though it's obviously a heavily modified car, I do want to put a set of stock hubcaps on it. And looks like there's at least two on this car. Pick any one of these early 60s Chrysler products, and they've got the good, quirky Virgil Exner styling inside and out, no matter where you look. Spitfire Roadster, 71, 72 Cadillac Coupe de Ville. Very much like one of my first cars I ever drove. Couple Aspen and Volare 2-doors. A lot of good parts on them. 52 Ford. 63 Falcon. 4-door station wagon. 55 Ford. 62 Electra. This Ford, first glance, think it's a convertible, but the closer you look, you can actually see it's a cut 2-door, but they actually kind of started to finish it out, although pretty obvious that that was a sedan. Studebaker pickup bed. This old coupe. 37 or 8 Mopar of some kind. Over here, This is a Lincoln Cosmopolitan. This was the larger body of the 49, 50, 51 Lincolns. The baby Lincoln, as they were called, had a body shell actually shared by the Mercury. This is the big one. Specific model year of this car is 1950. All 3 years had different grills. These were flathead powered, but it was actually the big block shared by the Ford medium duty trucks. Hop back in the van. It would be fun to walk this place and look at each one individually, but realistically it'd probably take a couple days. And I'm a bit pressed for time, which I'll explain why in a minute. So we're gonna circle down the row here, and I'm thinking this is where the real old stuff, the 30s and 40s cars are. Yeah, there they are. A lot of GM. I think there's a Studebaker too. 36 Oldsmobile. There's a little Aspen or Volare station wagon. Car's in super nice shape. So before I came out here, Trenton had seen my video on freeing the 67 Impala door latches, and so he'd asked me for help on one that they're needing to get that door open so they can get the fender pulled. And I knew he was pretty busy. We're actually going to be heading to an auction, which will be the next video after this. And so the purpose of this trip is not just to get stuff that I want, but to also help him out some. So spotted the car here, and I'm going to hop off and see if we can't get that door popped open. Okay.
Because you know what the hell you're doing.
Okay.
And I don't see how the hell you're going to do it, but
Yeah.
I'll pay
You will or you won't pay attention?
oh no, I'll pay close attention.
Okay.
That way I can do it later.
Alright. They did it before on a 4-door. That's a little different because it jam wraps more, but we'll figure it out.
Are you planning on cutting the striker?
So it did what we wanted it to. Least invasive, least destructive to all the parts around it. And those striker bolts, you can buy new. I think if a guy just weld a nut on that old one, it would turn right out. Even though this is a parts car, don't really want to tear stuff up just for the sake of that. But even if it was a restoration car, there'd be very little to have to fix by doing it with this method. Older style 78 to 80 Fairmont wagon with the wood grain. And then behind that is like 83, 84 LTD style wagon, still on the Fairmont chassis. 72 Newport 4-door post. Pretty neat car. Getting strong winter beater vibes. Although down here in Texas, it's 80 degrees during January. 56 Chevy. And this little Falcon just brought back such strong memories of my dad and I going junkyarding back in the early 2000s. International Travelall with the wood grain. There's actually two of these out here. It'd be super, super neat to see one of these, or even both of them, get put back together and go on the road. Even in Texas, there's still little rust spots here and there. This old truck's got history. Visited Mexico in 1981. That's a tourist pass. Little windshield sticker. Really neat truck, attractive colors. Believe that one's a 40 Mercury. And this is 53 or 4 Chrysler. Very, very reminiscent of the car that Howard Hughes had, with his air purification system in it. 68 or 9 Tornado. To me, this year is the best looking of all the Tornados. Another one of these Lancers. This one doesn't look like it's going to have any hubcaps. But always got to check anyway. You never know where there'll be one hiding. Car's given up some pieces, but there's still a lot here if someone needs it. Fox body Mustang. Old Chevy pickup. And this Ford jail bar. Then we've got the 80 Buick Regal. This car, I think, would have been a runner, possibly if tinkered on. They sold the intake. This one's got the unique 1980 grill. It was kind of a transitional year between the old body style with the newer, getting close to 1981 look. Tan interior. Just an average old car. Unfortunately, this driver's door latch is bad. This is a car that, I mean, realistically is still whole enough, complete enough that its ticket hasn't been punched yet as a parts car. Really should be saved. Over here in another section of the lot, ones that are going to stay complete for projects. This is a 64 Ford custom 2-door post. This would make a neat, unsuspecting car. Put any motor you want in it, from a 6-cylinder to a mighty V8. Bit of an odd one. This is a 65 or 6 Coupe de Ville, which has undergone a conversion to a flower car. Every funeral home had a hearse, but not every funeral home had one of these. These are generally seen in more of the wealthier areas where you had prominent people, so probably would have come out of a bigger city more than likely. A couple of these Cadillac factory limousines, 56 and a 55. These are just such neat cars. You wonder if they could tell stories, what kind of important people rode in them. And this one, 51 or 2 Plymouth Belvedere, 2-door hardtop. A lot of people know the Ford 2-door hardtops and, of course, the Chevrolets. But these Plymouths, just a pretty uncommon car. Little 61, I believe, Pontiac Tempest. 63, maybe, Studebaker. 76 or 7, Monte Carlo. 67 Plymouth B-body 2-door. Pontiac 42, I think. Neat old car. 68 Dodge Polara convertible. Some good hard to find stuff on that one. 65 Ford convertible. Then got the Buford T. Justice Pontiac. Dodge Town Panel truck, kind of rare. Then 65 Comet convertible. A lot of 1-year only parts on a 65 Comet. This car they just got last night. 68 Fairlane. 2-door hardtop. Bullet nose Studebaker coupe. Super neat car. Then this one's 52, I believe. Couple of these 52s. 53 Ford. 1947 Chevrolet coupe. Then we've got the Lincoln Continental convertible. Believe it's about a 64. Very rare car. About 10% of total production of those Continentals were convertibles. 67 Fury convertible. A lot of good parts on that one. By 67, convertibles were starting to not be very common at all in the lineups. Studebaker LTD, then 64 Comet. 64 and 5 shared a body style, but a lot was different between the 2 years. 62 Fairlane 2-door post. Old 55 Buick. This poor old Regal was a victim of a garage fire. Had quite a bit of work done to it. But you can see just got too hot. So strictly a parts car now. I mean, there's a lot of filler in the body. So realistically, wasn't super nice car to start with even before the fire. Just got hot enough, melted a lot of stuff, but fortunately didn't burn completely down. So there is still a good bit that's actual usable stuff. Your hard metal parts anyway. 63 Chevy and 4-door short bed crew cab, unique configuration, and an 8-lug 3/4 ton especially. A couple of these old Scouts. All these old 4-wheel drive little utilities are starting to gain good collector value. Old slab-sided Lincoln Town Car. This is among my favorite body styles of all time. They just have such a pure knife edge style to them that kind of called back the 60s Continentals. Over here we have half of a 73 Delta 88. Don't really have any guesses why there's half of a car, but there it is. Half of a Lincoln or Mercury as well. Couple of these old Mercedes. Old Packard body. I really dig this old white coupe. Just a pretty neat car. It's locked up, but not too victimized by the Texas sun yet. And it's a sunroof car. 280 CE. I really like this car, but realistically, sitting not running, it's probably beyond my abilities. Couple 73 to 77 El Caminos. And then one that is not an El Camino. This is actually a GMC Sprint. See on the emblem there. Similar to the pickup, but it had a separate aluminum adhesive insert in there. Somebody's already got the floor pan out of it. Cool old Dodge A100 camper. So here's a cool, quirky one. This is a vocational van from Red Rover News. Unfortunately, after these old service vehicles are retired out, they sand off the lettering, but you can kind of read there, fair, fast, factual, Red Rover News. Super cool vehicle. One you definitely wish could tell stories, because it would probably have some good ones. Just such an incredible place. Thousands. Cars, trucks, you name it. 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Out here in Texas for projects and parts. Couple Rivieras, 57 Ford. I think this green one's a 70. This other 72 or 3. 46 Plymouth. I was hoping there'd be some hood moldings on this 40 Buick for my dad's old side mount car, but I'll have to keep looking. This pre-war stuff, it sat around a long time and they've been picked on anywhere you go. 64 5 T-Bird. And then this is actually the other 56 Lincoln. Pretty similar to the one out back, but this one's not an AC car, although both pretty similar configuration. 56 four-door sedans, 57 Ford, 53 Buick, 54 Chevy, couple of them, old Plymouths, 62 Rambler. I used to have one of these. Mine was a 3 on the tree. And wouldn't you know, a couple Morris Minors. Could there be bucket seats? Man, I hope these are stock originals. Looks like it. These will be good to have for the Woody wagon. 58 Pontiac, 4-door and a 2-door. I think those ones are staying complete. Then a very new addition to the yard is the 73 Roadrunner. This is actually a 340 car with the pistol grip 4-speed. And honestly, pretty solid original old car. Still got the old Day 2 Mach 1 bias ply performance tires. I mean, it's got a little wear, got a little age, but for what's here, pretty decent solid platform to bring back and give this thing new life on the road. They were saying if this thing were tinkered on, there's a good chance it might run. 51 Chevrolet Fastback. I actually built the model car of this as a kid. Then for any Happy Days fans, this is the DeSoto Suburban. This was I believe a 7-passenger with the jump seats. Not exactly certain on that, but the extended body and the roof rack were what qualified it as a Suburban. Pretty neat car. Here's another one of these Mercedes-Benz coupes. This one's actually been sold. I believe it's going to the Netherlands or Denmark, maybe, he said. 250C is a designation meaning 6-cylinder. So they did those by engine size, and that corresponds to a 2.5 liter engine. Gasoline, of course. You can see pretty decent shape inside. It's an automatic car. This will be pretty neat to see back in Europe and back on the road. So I told you guys I'd show you the cousin to the Spitfire down there, and this is it. This is a Triumph GT6, actually the same color as that Roadster. And obviously you can see the differences, the hatchback, fastback styling. These are actually designed for 24 hours of Le Mans race, and they're a bit rare, 40,000 sold. There's another bit of an obscure car of a different kind right over here. This is a 77 through 79 Oldsmobile 98 Coupe. See, unfortunately, bit of a victim of vinyl top rust, but what you see here is not like completely terminal. Stuff like that I can make patches and get put back, but the real oddity of this car is the factory sunroof. This one's missing the engine and transmission. Pretty average old car. Unfortunately, been parked with the driver's window down and hasn't done the interior any favors. But when you look inside, that's really not the best type of upholstery. You see it just kind of shreds like toilet paper. So whether the window is down or not, this car still needed the interior redone, the headliner. But look at this thing, factory sunroof. I don't have an idea what the production on these was, but there sure can't be one around every corner. Just a odd, unique car all the way around. This is one that I'm still kind of thinking about. And on the back fence, there's just a few more of these British cars. Got the Triumph TR7. Honestly, in my opinion, probably one of the ugliest import cars ever made. To me, there's just really nothing pleasing about them. There's another one of these Spitfire convertibles. Pretty early one. Got the skinny chrome bumpers. MG Midget. Another early Spitfire. MGB Roadster. Another one of these midgets. Another MGB Roadster. And then this one, unfortunate fire damage victim. I just haven't quite been able to pin down exactly what it is. See, when the car was burned, it scorched off the plates, and there's really nothing readable. Obviously separated into two pieces, so strictly parts car at this point. But a lot of that probably never be reproduced. It's been a very meaningful trip to me to come out here. Consider Trenton a good friend, even though we do live so far apart. There's just so few people like us that have business like this, and to be able to get on the road and actually meet them in person, spend a day with them, is one of the highlights for me of doing all this. There's just so few people that can say they own something like this, and to be around and spend time together, it's just really a special trip for me to be able to make it out here. It's getting toward evening, and there's just a couple pretty interesting ones I didn't want to skip over. This is a 67 Ford wood grain Country Squire station wagon. A couple of these older Cadillacs, I believe a 62. Four-door hardtop. I really like that body style. That four-door hardtop, to me, has the best roofline of the 62s. Then there's actually 3 of these 1960 Coupe de Villes, and they've been picked on a while. But if a guy has a 60 Coupe de Ville and needs any pieces, there are 3 of these out here to pick from. A lot of 54, 55, 56 Cadillacs as well. Several Coupe de Villes. Just a lot of good parts if anybody's looking. Little Volkswagen Cabriole, the Bug. This Pontiac convertible, 75, I think. And one more wood grain Ford wagon. Be a 69 or 70. This is just a recent arrival that's been put down here in the yard. And then this, I believe this one's a 66 Le Mans. This has actually had an aftermarket vinyl top put on that totally ate the roof. But you can see this car didn't need a vinyl top to get eaten up. A lot of good parts though. These are another little section of ones that are staying complete. 57 Mercury 2-door post. 51 Bel Air 2-door hardtop. 57 Fairlane 2-door hardtop. And this kind of oddball, that was a asphalt racer. They have plans to put it back on the road. Can't be too many of these 57 Mercury 2-door posts. Just such a rare car. There's a bit of a dirt track wall hanger there. This 41 Ford actually came from me. This was one we rescued out of Oklahoma several years back. And Trenton came up once and picked up it and another one kind of like it from me there in Kansas. Rad Ford Ranger. They'll come around again. 53 or 4 Kaiser. And here's this other Travelall. Really straight, solid, complete truck. Surely has promised to see the road again. And it is 4-wheel drive. I always thought these Kaisers were really neat. This one, pretty rare car, 61 Oldsmobile limousine. Stand anywhere next to this car and you'll have a quirky angle to look at. But given the time, you see what Chrysler was doing, Virgil Exner stuff. This car's really not too far out of the realm of what people had to shop for back in the day. Just really fascinating relic of our country's transportation history. You see they actually domed the roof for the gentleman's top hats. So there's a lot of work that went in that car. This one, old Starfire maybe, or Buick. The little Vega. That's a pretty good car. Definitely would have promise and potential to see the road. 67 Barracuda Fastback. And then this old Buick. Obviously the sister car to that Olds 98. Almost identical configuration. Size, color, vinyl top. Except this car, not a factory sunroof like the Olds was. See underneath there, pull that top off and there's going to be a lot of repair necessary to bring a car like that back. This old Chevrolet, 3/4 ton, 4-wheel drive, military spec. And here we are, sunset on Sunset, Texas. This is the conclusion of the trip out here. Appreciate everybody coming along and looking and seeing all of what's out here to be found, which is just a fraction. I didn't show anywhere near all of what's here. And back home, got the seats for the Morris. Super happy to have correct seating for the station wagon. Been thinking about this car and probably ready to let it go. I've got a title for it. We did get it running and drove it, but realistically, while my dad's still around, I probably need to focus on getting at least a couple of his cars up and going. So this Morris is available for anybody that's interested.